Hello. So in today's video we're going to be discussing hybrid VLAN routing on a FortiSwitch that's managed by a FortiGate. Now I did post this image, slightly modified today, but the original image on LinkedIn, and I did promise the follow-up video, so here we are. So let's just look at the basics first. So if we have a standard FortiSwitch which is being managed by a FortiGate, what happens is that when you initially attach the switch to the FortiGate, the two exchange LLDP. When the FortiGate detects the switch, it then changes the switch's management mode from standalone to FortiLink. The switch reboots. Auto ISL then changes the uplink to a VLAN trunk. And all the VLANs are obviously then trunked up to the FortiGate. Now this can be a single link, can be a lag group, or the FortiGate can participate in a multi-chassis lag environment. But it's irrelevant. At the end of the day, the FortiGate is acting as a router on a stick. So any traffic between VLANs, the traffic is tagged, sent up the trunk link, hits the SVI that's on the FortiGate. And then the FortiGate does either the inter-VLAN routing, or it sends it out to the default gateway to the outside world or somewhere else, depending on the destination IP address. Now, the default purpose of that is to provide a secure networking environment, because obviously a FortiGate is a layer 7 next generation firewall, which means that in terms of the inter-VLAN routing, we can now apply all layer 7 services: IPS, application control, antivirus, sandboxing, URL filtering, and so forth. And arguably in 90%, if not, I would say arguably 99% of customers these days, the traffic profile is north to south, i.e. user traffic trying to access something either in a remote data center, or increasingly common either in the cloud or as a SaaS service. So that whole mindset of, hey, we don't want something going through the firewall, is redundant, because if your network traffic is north-south, if your traffic profile, you're going to be going through the firewall anyway, right? It's going to be the lowest common denominator. But in this way, we can enhance security. However, there may be situations where you have a need for ultra-low latency between two segments in your network. Let's say, for example, CCTV cameras going to the NVR. Now, if it's an enclosed environment, you may trust it implicitly, in which case there's no need to send it through the firewall. But what is more important to you is the low latency. Now, yes, a FortiGate has got an ASIC which does 3 to 5 microseconds packet forwarding. But again, right, this is about customer choice, and if the customer wants to bypass, the purpose of this video is to show you how to do that. Now, a FortiSwitch is still a switch. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's managed by a FortiGate or not. It is still a switch, and it will still follow default switching rules. So as I said, by default, everything's going to be trunked up to the FortiGate, but there's nothing stopping you creating SVIs here on the switch. So in this example, I've got VLANs 20, 30, 40 in normal mode. They're configured on the FortiGate. The FortiGate owns the configuration stanza of the FortiSwitch. All right, it is the master of the configuration, but it does not control every aspect of the FortiSwitch. There are commands that you can issue on the FortiSwitch that are not controlled by the FortiGate, and that the FortiGate will not overwrite. Unfortunately, VLANs are not one of those. So I have to configure the VLANs on the FortiGate, but that doesn't mean I have to route the VLANs up to the FortiGate, right? So in essence, what would happen here is if I stood up VLANs 20, 30, 40 on the FortiGate, and I then stood up VLANs 100 and 200 directly on the switch, the next time I made a VLAN change here in the FortiGate would simply delete these two. So we need to make sure that we do all of that. However, the SVI portion on the FortiSwitch is not managed by the FortiGate, which means that I can configure those here, and I can configure aspects of the routing table so that these two SVIs can route to the outside world. Now here I've got them routing back to the FortiGate, so inter-VLAN traffic will go directly. Anything external to that will go up to the FortiGate. But this could be another router. It could be, you could have a situation where maybe you wanted a fail open sort of environment. So if the FortiGates completely died, I don't know, maybe you're in an OT environment or whatever, and you wanted the primary of your traffic to go via the FortiGate for security purposes, but you were concerned that what if both FortiGates and an active passive pair failed and you wanted a tertiary bypass mechanism, you could have another router here and you could use this method to bypass the traffic or hand it off to an external router. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So here I've got a FortiGate and it's managing the switch. Now, right at the outset here, I'm going to say something, all right, to prevent people asking me for this. This is a virtual machine, a virtual FortiSwitch. It is for internal Fortinet use only. So please don't message me via LinkedIn asking me for the copy of this, because the answer will be no. And in fact, I'm just simply not going to respond to those requests, all right? As I said, these are for internal Fortinet use only. So although I'm using this virtual machine here, you must reflect upon what I'm showing you here in terms of a physical FortiGate, because the exact same will work. So here I've got my FortiSwitch, and if I go to my VLAN database, I can see that I've got my VLANs here. All right. Now, I can go to this FortiSwitch. From here, I can go to my diagnostics, and I can go CLI access. Okay. So now I'm logging directly onto that FortiSwitch. If I do a show switch VLAN, you can see that I've got those VLANs. So there's that client VLAN, and then VLANs 1000 and 2000 are here as well. So the other ones are the default VLANs that are configured as part of the normal FortiLink process. All right, so these are, as you can see, voice, video, various quality of service, and then we've got the quarantine and the onboarding. These are for your FortiSwitch NAC, your NAC policies. But that's irrelevant to the topic. I'm just showing you that those are ones that are created as part of the default environment. VLANs 1000, 2000, and this one called client VLAN, and also the isolation VLANs are one that I have configured. So let's show you what happens here. So let's say I go config switch VLAN, and I say edit VLAN, edit VLAN 200, for example. VLAN ID, edit, mustn't put the, edit 200. All right, next, and I do a show. So there's VLAN 200 down here. Okay, so now I've configured that directly on the switch. So what we're going to do here now is I'm going to come to these VLANs, and you'll see if I refresh that, VLAN 200 is not here. So let's say, for example, I go and I delete VLAN 1000. So I'm not touching VLAN 200 because it doesn't exist in this database. And I'm going to say I'm going to delete VLAN 1000. Now, I'm going to go, in fact, rather than going to the switch that way, I'm on the switch here. And if I go show switch VLAN, we can see that VLAN 200 and VLAN 1000 have gone. VLAN 200 disappeared because it wasn't in the FortiGate database. All right, remember that the FortiGate is the master and control of this particular configuration, so it'll delete anything that you do here. Now, why did I switch across to this dashboard rather than going via the FortiGate? Is to show you that the FortiSwitch is still a switch. All right, it says here I can still get to it. I can give it an IP address. If I come along here to the network and I look at my interfaces, I've got the internal interface. This is the interface used by FortiLink. So this is the automatically configured one, the one that's created after the LLDP. Once the FortiLink takes over, it then establishes communication over VLAN 4094. The switch then does a DHCP request and it gets this IP address from the DHCP pool of the FortiLink. However, switch has still got a management interface. All right, and I can give this management interface an IP address. And that's the cool thing about the FortiSwitches, is that they give you choice. And this is how I'm getting to this one. I'm using this 20.159 IP address there. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create VLAN 200. Now the switch didn't like the VLAN. It wants to have the actual IP address, ID rather, VLAN ID, whereas the FortiGate allows you to give names. And I'm not going to give a layer 3 persona here because I do not want these VLANs to be routed via the FortiGate. I want them to go directly. I'm going to go OK there. In fact, I'm going to create VLAN 100 as well. VLAN 100 and 100. Switch that off. I'm not going to give it an IP address there either. So now I've got VLANs 100, 200 and 2000 and the original ones. So let's go back here again and run that command, show switch VLAN, and there's my VLANs 200 and 100. Okay, now I've got two Windows machines here. All right, at the moment, they've got a management addresses, which is how I'm getting to them via RDP, but Ethernet 0 here is going to be the one that I'm going to use to communicate between them. And you can see at the moment it's got a 169 address default because they don't have IP addresses. But I have connected them to the switch. So if I look at the ports here, I can see that port 2 and port 3 are connected. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put these ports into those VLANs. I'm going to put that one into VLAN 100 and I'm going to put this one into VLAN 200. Now again, if I come to the switch, I can see that. So if I come to my switches and I come to my physical ports, oops, sorry, not physical ports, the interfaces, all right, I can see that ports 2 and port 3 are in VLANs 100, 200. So these others, these tagged VLANs, again, they are for the FortiLink NAC process, right? Which we're not using, but they are there. They are always there because of FortiLink NAC. This link here is the dynamic trunk link, or the ISL link, that was established via FortiLink. And you can see it's got the default VLAN, the FortiLink VLAN of 4094. And then it's got the allowed VLANs, which are allowed on the trunk to facilitate the security and the inter-VLAN routing by the FortiGate. But in this case, we're going to be doing the routing directly on this because we haven't provided a profile on the FortiGate. So I now need to give these a layer 3 persona. So I'm going to come along here to physical ports. Now this is the configuration I'm going to do on the FortiSwitch directly. So if I come here and I go interface and I go VLAN interface, I'm going to add VLAN, call that VLAN 200 and 200. And now I'm going to go 192.168.200.1/24, and which will be the default gateway for this particular one. And I'm going to go add there. And let's go, I don't know why I did it in the wrong order. Should have done 100 first. 100, 192.168.100.1/24. Add. Okay, in fact, let's just enable ping on both of those. Now, at the moment, these Windows machines still won't get an IP address because there's no DHCP running on these. All right. Now, what I could do is, even though I'm not routing on these VLANs, I could give these VLANs an IP address. It doesn't have to be the default gateway. It could be 254 or something else. And I could run a DHCP server there. It would still work. All right. So when the machine sent a DHCP request, because the DHCP server was running here, it would still respond, and that's perfectly valid. But in this case, I'm going to come up to the switch and I'm going to enable the DHCP servers here. So VLAN 100, netmask, netmask is 255.255.255.0. Okay, interface, make that VLAN 100. And let's come along here and we'll do 192.168.100.10, 192.168.100.20. all right, and we need to give it a default gateway of 192.168.100.1. okay, don't need anything else. Well, we can put it in DHCP. Service type, default, specify 8.8.8.8. Yeah, so I mean, local would have been used its own IP address as the DHCP, and I'm going to go add that, and let's do exactly the same for the other VLAN. So 255.255.255.0. VLAN 200 is all good. 192.168.200.1s and 8.8.8.8 and 192.168.200.10, 192.168.200.20, and let's add that. Okay, so let's come along here and let's just refresh these. Oops, wrong one. Status, properties, edit. Hold on. Let us just change adapter. Let's go ipconfig /r. Hey, hold on, I think it already got one there. ipconfig. Oh, there it did. All right. 192.168.100.10. So it's got an IP address, and this one's also got an IP address now as well. I didn't need to do the release and renew. Okay, so they've got those, and if I do a ping 192.168.100.1, okay, and what if I do a .10? So now those two machines are talking to each other quite happily. Okay, so coming back to this, so you saw I created the SVIs directly on the switch. All right, I then created the DHCP server, and now both of these machines can talk to each other quite happily. So let's just show that these do not get overwritten. So I'm going to make a change on the FortiGate. So let's create something else. Let's create VLAN 30. VLAN ID 30. And we'll give this one an IP address, 68.30.1/24. So this would be the normal use case. Okay. Ping configs with, okay, 35.4. Okay, I'll get rid of that. So okay there. All right, so there's VLAN 30. So if I come back to here and I look at my switch VLANs, So VLAN 30 is there, VLANs 200 and 100 are still there. If I come to my system, I come to my network, interface, VLANs, those VLANs are still there, the SVIs are still there, so they have not been overwritten by the FortiGate, because again, the FortiGate does not control this particular stanza. And my DHCP servers are still there as well, because the FortiGate does not control this particular stanza. Okay? But now, what if, so that's fine, right? So you've seen that these two machines can talk to each other quite happily. So this one is a 100.10, so if I go ping 192.168.200.10, okay, so they can ping each other. But what would happen if I wanted to route out to the outside world? Okay, so I now need to create another SVI here. So I'm going to use VLAN 2000, which I'd already configured, all right? And on the FortiGate, it's already got an IP address, but now I'm going to create an SVI here to communicate with that. In fact, it's going to go via the FortiLink trunk. So, interface, VLAN, add VLAN, 123. 1, 2, 3. What did I call that IP address? 2011.11.200.2. 11.11.200.2/24. Ping. Add that. Okay, I've got that now. So I should be able to ping 11.11.200.1, which I can. Okay, now here's the challenge, right? By default, the FortiGate has already got a default route via the FortiLink trunk on VLAN 4094 pointing to the FortiGate, because it needs that for its licensing, it needs that for its NTP, and it needs that for its control. So if I come here and I do a get router info, routing table all, you can see I've got that static route there. Now it's got this in here from the management, okay, but it's not going to use that. Now I obviously can't have another one there to facilitate the routing of these VLANs. So what I do now is I go ahead and I create a VRF. Config VRF. And let's give this name router. VRF ID is 10. It can be anything, of course. Now what I'm going to do here is I am going to come along here and I'm going to put all of these into that VRF. VRF router update. Oh no, sorry, didn't want to do it there. That's the wrong place. I don't know why it took me. VLAN edit VRF, there we go. Oh, it's taking me back there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Network interface VLAN edit VRF router update. I could do this via CLI obviously, but I'm just choosing to do it via this. VLAN, and we'll put that into VRF 200 as well. VRF router rather. Okay, update. Right. Get router info routing table all. So show router VRF. Okay, router VRF1. Show system interface. System interface. edit VLAN 200, set VRF router, next. I should have done that at the outset. So, and I've always said to you people that these videos are engineering videos, so I'm not going to hide anything from you. Okay? I'm not simply going to go off and edit the video and say, oh, so what I'm going to do here is I've got to come along here and delete these. I should have done this at the outset. Network interface VLAN, delete. Right. So VLAN 2000, VLAN ID 2000, VRF is router 11.11.200.2/24, ping, add VLAN 100, VLAN is 100, VRF is router 192.168.100.1/24, ping, add VLAN 200 192.168.200.1/24, ping, add. Oh, hold on, did I put that one? I forgot to put that one in the VRF. Add VLAN 200 VRF router 192.168.200.1/24, ping, add. Okay, so those are all in the correct VRF now. Let's go back here, add DHCP server v1, I'll call it 100 actually, 255.255.255.0, default gateway 192.168.100.1, 8.8.8.8, 192.168.100.10, 192.168.100.20. Let's make sure I've got everything. Yep. Add DHCP server 200 0 VLAN 200 192.168.200.1/24, default gateway 200.1, and DNS server 8.8.8.8, 192.168.200.10, 192.168.200.20, add. Let me just make sure that's all correct there. VLAN 100, VLAN 200. Yeah, that all looks good. Now, let me just check that I can ping that. So let's just do a get router info routing table all. And now I can see I've got a separate routing table here, right? So I've got all of that in the VRF. So I do execute ping 11.11.200.1. Okay, I can't ping that because of the VRF. So if I come to the FortiGate, execute ping 11.11.200.2. Okay, so that's working. Now what I want to do here is I want to do a static root. Router config static, and I'm going to do an add root 0.0.0.0. Add root 100. That's fine. And I'm going to go device is VLAN 200, and I'm going to go VRF router 11.11.200.1. Okay, add that. Now if I come back here and I do that same command again, get router info routing table all, I can see I've got a static route in that VRF as well as all the other routes associated with that VRF, and it's not clashing with the default route in the default VRF, which is being used for management. Right, so I need, of course, a policy, because this is a firewall. Should already be there, but let's just double check. Okay, so I'm coming from VLAN 200 out to the outside world, and I'm going to be netting on the way out. So I should still be able to ping. Did it lose its IP address? ipconfig 192.168. Hold on, I know why. 100.1 ping 8.8.8.8. They can ping there. Let me just check here. Ping 192.168.100.1 .200.1 ping 8.8.8.8. ping 11.11.200.1. Why can I not ping that? Let me just check that this has got its config 200.10 ping that. Of course, we need to have routes, right? So let's come back here, network static route. We need to do this. We need to have create new 192.168.100.0/24 via VLAN 2000 and 11.11.200.2, and we need 192.168.200.0/24 interface VLAN 2000, and we need to go 11.11.200.2. Okay, so now we've got those routes there. I can get rid of those. These were from a previous thing I did. Okay, so now I should be able to ping those. Execute ping 192.168.200.1, 192.100.1, 100.10, 200.10, and here I should be able to ping 8.8, which I could anyway, and here I do a ping 8.8.8.8, and I can ping out now, and if I do a trace route, 8.8.8.8. Sudo traceroute -D so it doesn't try resolve. Okay, there we go. 200.1, that's going the correct path. Traceroute -D 8.8.8.8. Ah, hold on, this is going the wrong way. So that is because this machine has got a static route going directly via my management interface here. So let us get rid of that. Change adapter options. Which one is it? Network 10, is it that one? I think it's this one. Properties. Get rid of that. And I might lose connection to this machine, but anyway, let's see. Have I? No, I don't think I have. And there we go. So now it's going the right path. All right. So let's just check its IP address. IP config. It's 100.10. So ping 192.168.200.10. So those are the two machines communicating with each other. 8.8.8.8 communicating with the outside world. Likewise, ping 192.168.100.10 and communicating with the outside world. So hopefully that was clear. All right, so right now, all these three interfaces here are in the same VRF, which gives them an entirely different routing table to the primary devices. All these VLANs will route up to the FortiGate. These two VLANs can route to each other and can route to the outside world via their VRF. So hopefully that was clear. So it might look convoluted, but it's just basic logic. It's just basic Ethernet switching. It's just basic routing. And honestly, any network engineer should have a fundamental understanding of both those concepts. All right, so this shouldn't be complicated or difficult at all to get a grasp of. The only thing is to remember that any changes you make on the switch, which are controlled by the primary database of the FortiGate, and let's just look at that. So if I do a config switch controller manage switch, these are all the configs. So there is that FortiSwitch, right? So you can see here my ports, okay? And by default, whenever I create a VLAN on the FortiGate, it's going to make sure that the FortiGate is the commander-in-chief of all those configurations. So if I just do an exit here, sorry, an end, and I do a config switch controller and I do a question mark, these are all the things that are controlled by the FortiGate. But as I said, the DHCP server, the VRFs, and the SVIs on the FortiSwitch are not managed by the FortiGate. However, even if they were, you can use something called custom command. Now, this video is already getting longer than I anticipated, so I'm not going to go into custom commands, but basically custom commands allow you to push any CLI context from the FortiGate that is not managed here directly to the FortiSwitch. And every single time you make a change on the FortiGate, it will refer back to these custom commands to make sure that they exist on the FortiSwitch. And if not, they'll push them down, right? So keep it consistent. So as I said, you could either do it via here, or you can do it directly on the FortiSwitch, as I've been showing you in this example. So yeah, I know that was a longer than normal video, but it was a complex environment, and hopefully that will save somebody some heartache one day when they decide that they need devices to talk directly with each other over the actual switch versus going via the FortiGate. So as always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch.